All right, guys, good morning. You're tuned in to WGDR Plainfield, WGDH Hardwick. This is Gar College Community Radio, 91.1 FM and 91.7. This is In the Weeds. Tune in. Stay tuned. We have a great show with Erica Diener from Mammoth Microbes. We also have the weather. We're going to start off with the weather with Bob. Bob, are you there?
I am. Good morning. Well, here we are, another week in springtime, and the way this spring has been going, this week's going to be going. It's going to be cool and gray and damp, much of it. Again, we've seen way too much of this cool, gray, damp stuff this spring, but we're not done with it yet, unfortunately. Now, today, guys, not a half-bad day. We're going to see a mixture of clouds and sunshine, high temperatures, probably mid-50s. And this afternoon, especially this afternoon, a couple light rain showers, very light rain showers, like just a nuisance kind of thing. Now, overnight tonight, we're looking at lows dip down into the 30s, mid to upper 30s with a few light rain or snow showers. Mid-May, I shouldn't have to use that word snow, but there could be a little snow in the air in the lower elevations. I don't think it's going to stick. However, in the mountains, they could pick up, way up in the mountains, the summits, they could pick up several to many inches of snow in the highest elevations. But as I say, for the rest of us, it'll just probably be a little snow in the air, but I don't even want that. Tomorrow is just rain showers, again, light stuff. High temperatures tomorrow could be record-setting in the sense that the highs tomorrow are only expected in the mid-40s. That's 20 degrees below average. Average highs now should be in the mid-60s. Mid-40s would also be the coldest ever for a May 14th. It'll be tomorrow. Pretty darn cold tomorrow, mid-40s. Then Tuesday night, lows again in the 30s, mostly above freezing, and a few light rain or, again, some very light snow showers into Wednesday morning. Other than that, Wednesday, a little bit better highs, low 50s, but still cloudy with a couple of rain showers. A bit of a break in the action. Thursday, partially sunny highs at least around 60, and we end up the work week with a good deal of clouds. And a few rain showers again on Friday. Friday's highs, low 60s, which is a little bit better. But again, the average highs mid-May are in the mid-60s, and we're not getting there at all this week. And mid-40s tomorrow?
Isn't it supposed to be April showers bring May flowers?
Yeah, well, the problem is it's already May. Apparently, April showers have brought more May showers.
I don't know, man. I read a great meme last week that said, hey, we had a great summer last year. I think it was a Tuesday. I feel like that's going to happen to us this year.
It could still happen. It absolutely could still happen. They may not be long before some of us are complaining about the heat and humidity, but not this week.
Not this week. All right,
not
Bob. Well, again, more depressing weather news. I need to know when I can get my beach body out, Bob.
Not quite yet.
Right. Keep it wrapped up. All right, Bob. Well,
all right. Take care, guys. We'll see what we see next Monday.
All right, buddy. Hopefully have a better week next week.
Yeah, me too.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
All right. All right, guys. Stay tuned again. Like we said, we have Erica Diener from Mammoth Microbes on with us, and we're going to get it right to the news. And now for your local and national Canna News for May 13th, 2019. The USDA issues first ever organic hemp certification. According to a Bazinga report, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has given South Carolina-based CBD brand Palmetto Harmony organic certification, marking the first time that the agency has given the designation to a hemp product. Organic status is among the more challenging USDA certifications to receive, as crops must be grown in soil free of synthetic chemicals for at least 3 consecutive years. Farmers must provide the agency with a detailed list of items used in the cultivation process, including tools, containers, and the labels they use. According to the USDA, certified organic product sales reached $7.28 billion in 2017, up from $3.12 billion in 2012. The Organic Trade Association says organic food counts for 5.5% of total retail food sales. Prior to last year's federal descheduling of hemp by the Farm Bill, the USDA was unable to certify hemp-derived products as organic. Some hemp and cannabis companies did seek organic certification from private companies and nonprofits in lieu of state or federal programs. In Maine, for example, the Maine Organic Farmer and Gardeners Association provided their certification for medical cannabis products grown in that state. California's expected cannabis tax revenue drops $223 million. The Long Beach reports California officials are scaling back the state's estimated cannabis tax revenues by $223 million through June 2020, amid slower than expected sales. The state taxes both medical and recreational cannabis products at 15%, but total taxes can be as high as 50% in some communities. In Long Beach, city leaders cited slow cannabis sales as a reason for a projected $9 million budget gap. In the city, the overall tax on cannabis products is 33.25%, which includes a 15% state tax, an 8% city excise tax, and a 10.25% sales tax. In 2018, California raised just $345.2 million in cannabis tax revenues, which represented about half of what lawmakers originally expected. The lower than expected revenues are likely the result of the high taxes and the persistence of the illicit market. California lawmakers are considering a measure that would reduce the cannabis tax rate from 15 to 11%. That bill was referred to the Appropriations Committee in May. A previous version of that bill passed that committee 16-1 on April 24th. In their report on the legislation, the committee said that state taxes are not the only reason why legal cannabis businesses are at a disadvantage, citing local tax policies, licensing requirements, banking restrictions, and laboratory requirements. The committee also noted that the tax reduction law passes, it would likely face a court challenge because, since it was a voter-approved initiative, it is unclear whether the legislature can amend the law tax structure. Alabama Senate approves bill to legalize medical cannabis. In a 17-6 vote, the chamber cleared the legislation which would allow patients 19 and older with certain conditions to obtain a medical cannabis card that would allow them to use, possess, and purchase cannabis from licensed dispensaries. It would also establish an Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission to oversee the program. Patients would have had tried traditional treatment options and also be subject to random drug testing. The conditions that would qualify patients for the program under the legislation include cancer, autism, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and all terminal conditions. With the favorable vote, the bill now heads to the House. While it could have gone before the Chamber's Judiciary Committee for consideration, Speaker Mac McCutcheon said on Thursday evening that it would instead be sent to the Health Committee, where it will likely face more favorable odds. Beyond legalizing medical cannabis, the bill would also extend the two existing state laws set to expire. One allows the University of Alabama to conduct studies on the use of CBD, and the other provides a defense against unlawful possession of CBD for qualifying patients. While the medical cannabis advanced, lawmakers in the House Judiciary Committee narrowly rejected a bill on Wednesday that would have made low-level possession of cannabis a violation punishable by a fine with no jail time. Nebraska lawmakers approve a bill to legalize medical cannabis. The Nebraska Legislature's Judiciary Committee passed a bill to legalize medical cannabis on Friday and will now head to the full legislature for consideration. The legislation, sponsored by Senator Anna Weishart, would establish a system allowing patients who are suffering from a wide range of conditions to use, possess, and purchase certain amounts of cannabis from licensed dispensaries. An amendment adopted by the committee scaled back the original proposal in several ways, including by prohibiting patients from smoking medical cannabis and from cultivating cannabis at home. Additionally, the legislation removes a catch-all provision that would have allowed physicians to recommend cannabis for any condition, instead delineating a list of specific qualifying disorders, although pain is included. The revised bill also includes more restrictions on the amount of cannabis patients can possess, but it removes a requirement for them to register within the state, a change arising out of concerns about their gun rights being jeopardized by being listed in a registry. The revised bill passed out of the committee in a 5-1 vote. It is expected to be debated on the legislature's Senate floor on Wednesday. The senators partnered with activists to form a committee to draft a measure to legalize medical cannabis that would appear on the state's 2020 ballot, citing the legislature's inaction on the issue as their motivation. The initiative's language was approved by the Secretary of State in March, clearing it for the signature gathering process. And that's it for your local and national Canna News for May 13th, 2019. All right, guys, and we are back. Welcome to In the Weeds. This is another fun Monday morning. We're in May. The time is flying. I'm excited to have you in studio. I want to give a big shout out to Brandon. Brandon, are you there? Oh, did we lose a Brandon?
No, we did not. I sure am. How are you doing this morning?
Good, man. Good morning, man. Good morning. We're doing good. We're still in a state of gray haze, apparently, thanks to our friend Bob over here. We're not going to have summer anytime soon. But I just want to give you a big shout-out. Thank you for being on board this morning. And
no problem. Thanks for having me.
We're excited. We have Erica Diener from Mammoth. I see you literally everywhere.
I know. We've been seeing each other so much. I feel like you've been asking me to come here for like almost a year now, and finally I got it into my schedule.
Well, what's sad about us is I feel like we're everywhere, and like so everywhere I'm at, you're at, right? Because we just bump into each other everywhere. But then again, every day I look at you, you're like in a different other state where I'm like being home, being lazy, working on stuff. Like you make me feel lazy. It's sad. But anyways, tell people who you are.
So I am Erica Diener. I am the Senior Sales Executive of Mammoth Microbes. I deal with all of our clients on the East Coast from Maine to Florida.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, so I deal with all the hydroponic retailers, and then like commercial cultivation. I talk to home growers. I do all kinds of cannabis events, cannabis cups, pretty much anything you find pot growers at.
Anyway, fine. So when you say you work with them, so you work with Mammoth, right? So Mammoth is a really cool company. I don't think a lot of people know about it, but they should, right?
Right. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about like our backstory. Mammoth was developed by 3 PhD microbiologists at Colorado State University. Basically, they were trying to figure out a way to reduce the negative impacts of agriculture on the environment by allowing plants to utilize more of the nutrients that we are feeding them. Basically, a lot of farmers are over-fertilizing their soil, killing natural soil microbes, and we came up with a consortia that breaks down phosphorus at a really high rate and allows plants to uptake more of that, which phosphorus is the most important in the flowering phase. It's also the most harmful to the environment, causes things like algae blooms. A lot of that runoff is just like really, really bad. So trying to prevent ecological issues while allowing increased yields and better crop quality.
Now you represent the East Coast, right? So we talked to a lot of people on the West Coast that have, like you just nailed it on the head, the water runoff issues.
Right.
So do you see anybody having these issues?
Well, actually, like in certain areas, I know I live in Rhode Island specifically, and one of the towns where most of the large-scale cultivators are, they actually test their runoff. So they get fined or charged for any amount of extra phosphorus that's in their runoff. So by using a microbial that really targets that phosphorus uptake, you're going to be wasting less of those nutrients, and you're, causing less issues. So, I mean, typically outdoor growers, any kind of like, we deal with a lot of hemp farmers, outdoor crops, you're going to see more of that like leaching into the environment. But really phosphorus we're like depleting the earth of all of its natural phosphorus sources. We're like down to like the last 30%. A lot of farmers don't even realize how big of an issue that is. Basically, once we use it all, it's the price of it's going to increase. The means of like mining it and processing it is going to become a lot more difficult. So we need to like preserve the natural resources that we have by being more efficient with the nutrients we're feeding. People dump tons of phosphorus into their soil, and almost 70% of that almost instantly gets mineralized within their medium. And that happens with any medium, soil, cocoa, even in hydroponics, it becomes just unavailable to the plant. So we are wasting a lot, and I think that's one of the most important things, is just being like sustainable, especially in this industry, because we're kind of blowing it up. So like we need to think about that stuff too.
I'm glad you guys bring up the water runoff, because a lot of people, we hear about it a lot from the Western people, like we discussed. And then now everybody seems to be growing somewhere, so not only do we have water runoff issues, but we have the pollen issues, and male and female, and the sex and things going on just from our air and getting things blown around. So with your microbes, do they work for all mediums?
Yeah, so they came up with basically we have a proprietary trait selection platform that allows them to choose specific microbes for different characteristics and the way that they perform in the soil. And then by combining them together, they work as a microbial community to target that phosphorus uptake. They are stable in a liquid form. You can mix this with any nutrient line. You can use it in any medium. They are active bacteria. There's 200 million active bacteria per milliliter. It's extremely concentrated. And the consortia that they've come up with Mammoth P, it will cycle phosphorus at 30 times greater than any known bacteria in nature.
Really?
Yes.
So
you're like, wow.
That's impressive.
There's a lot going on in that little bottle over there. So, it's strong. It's doing all this stuff. The phosphorus stuff. How about using it?
Yeah, I'll tell you why phosphorus is so important to your plants. Basically, phosphorus is the main component to so many stages of life within any type of crop. It's going to help you with your root development. It'll help with stem strength and density. It increases the cell walls of the plant, so it allows nutrients to flow throughout the plant better. It also is like a major component of storing RNA and DNA, which is basically like the blueprints to the plant of like how to continue to live and reproduce. Essential. It also helps with storing energy. ATP, it's a component of ATP. And in flower, you're going to see a really heavy increase in overall yield by increasing that phosphorus uptake. That is kind of the key to Mammoth P with cannabis growers specifically, is we see between 16 and 30% increase in dry sellable weight just by adding that to what they're already doing. They don't need to add, they can actually reduce the amount of nutrients they're feeding and add that, and they will see an increase in yield and in quality. It is all organic, OMRI Clean Green certified, so you can use it on anything. It's food safe, But yeah, that it is very popular with the cannabis growers because of that yield increase that they see.
Right, I can't imagine why. Right. So now you were saying that even to get these yields, and you can literally add this to anybody's regimen.
Yeah,
now,
you don't have to change anything.
Yeah. Now, you said something I kind of find a little interesting for most growers right now, especially with a lot of new growers. It's the nutrient feed setups, right? A lot of these guys are reading from the bottle going, oh man, it says put a tablespoon of this into a gallon of that. If I put 3, it's going to be better, right? But most of the good growers say, no, way back off. Do you have any recommendations for somebody, a new grower that would want to use your product to use it properly, I guess you could say?
For growers, I always say less is more.
Right.
With our product specifically, it's extremely concentrated. It's meant to make your system run more efficiently. The whole idea is to reduce what you need to put into your system and just maximize your yield and minimize your inputs, basically. So the concentration of that, you only run it at 0.6 milliliters per gallon. So basically half a milliliter. It's very concentrated. Most other microbials, you're going to be running at 10 to 15 milliliters per treatment. So that's, it goes a long way. That little bottle in your hand will mix 400 gallons.
Really?
Yes.
Right. Now, how many different products do they make right now?
So we're currently, Mammoth P was our first product. We're only 4 years old as a company. We were a startup recognized as one of the top 500 in the world of 2017 for our biotechnology. But the first product we did release is the Mammoth P. We are coming out with something hopefully by the end of this month. We have been working on a bunch of new products. So we'll be coming out with a biocontrol line, pest prevention, and stuff like that, and other microbials as well. But Mammoth P is the only one out on shelves right now.
All right. Did you say pest prevention?
Yes.
Oh, all right. So that's going to be interesting. I have to get you back on to discuss that if you can't right now.
No, yeah, I can't say too much, but it'll be very, very soon, and I'll definitely come back and tell you guys all about it.
We're going to need some for ours, you know. So, anyway, so now we have Mammoth P. These guys are doing amazing things. You're all over the country now at the trade shows. You're all over these cool trade shows. So tell people about the trade shows and where they can find you coming up.
Okay. Yeah. I do a lot of the NECAN events, the New England Cannabis Conventions, Canna Con. I do the U.S. Eastern Hemp Conference. I'm always at MJ BizCon in Vegas every year. You can find me at most cannabis trade shows on the East Coast. If there's one going on, I'm usually at least there walking it, or you'll see my booth typically.
Right.
Easy to find. I'm on Instagram at Mammoth_Erica. But yeah, I'm usually pretty easy to get in touch with.
Right, you're fine. Easy to find. Are you going to be at the NECAN come up here in Vermont here?
I am going to be walking it just the one day. I will be leaving samples with some of our retailers that will be have booths at the event. So there will be Mammoth samples there. I do not have a booth this year, though.
Oh,
I know.
That's all right. That's okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great things coming up. This summer is insane. Which event are you looking forward to the most?
The Growers
East Coast,
Cup.
West Coast?
The Growers Cup in Vermont. Honestly, I look forward to a lot of different things. The summertime is always fun. I love coming up and seeing people's crops, like outdoors. Came from growing outdoors. When I started growing cannabis, I was in California doing outdoors in Oregon. And so I love being on the East Coast and coming up to like Maine and Vermont and seeing like the outdoors during outdoor season. But I'm definitely looking forward to a couple events this summer. I did that, the Kind Mind Camp out last year. I'll do again. We're going to do your Cannabis Cup with
the
Pheno Cup with MTG Seeds. And, I do like the Terptown Throwdowns. I judge for that. So I'm excited for those. There's going to be a big one this summer. Yeah.
Yeah, Terptown looks sick this year. I'm not going to lie.
Terptown is always sick.
Yeah, I got to talk to Brett some more. Like, Brett, come on, man. Hopefully we'll be there this year. We had the Pheno Cup. Mass has actually got a lot of... Our New England area has got a lot of great events coming up this year. It's been building for a few years now, but this year seems like now that we have like a little bit of the freedom to consume in Massachusetts, a little bit better than we did last year. Things are going to pop off. Vermont, there's a bunch of things happening in Maine. Cool events. And we got a whole bunch of great news coming up for the Pheno Cup, so we can't wait to put that out there. Now, one of my biggest questions, I love asking this to everybody that goes from the East Coast to the West Coast, because as you know, we always like, who's the best, and not only who the best, but what do you see are the biggest differences right now in our current state of like where we're at right now? Because like the funny thing I like to talk to is people they look at us and laugh because like in Mass we're like, hey, this is all new and great, and they're like, dude, that's so 5 years ago, you know what I mean? But you're here, you're in the middle of it. So where do you have a preference?
So it's totally like two different worlds, It's like on the West Coast in California, it's so part of the culture and it's so ingrained in the culture. It's been that way for so long. Like you go into these small towns where there's, where all the growers are, and that is the culture. Like you go into the bar in town and it's all cannabis growers, you know, and that's, you know, all the small business owners, like they started growing weed. That's how they bought their businesses. It's like so a part of everything out there. And then you come to the East Coast and it's such a segregated underground, like still, you know, it's just not as in your face, I guess. But as far as like the growers themselves, you know, West Coast is very old school method. You know, a lot of the growers are very stuck in their ways about doing things, and they've always done them that way. And I feel like on the East Coast, everyone's so new into it. They're very open to new technology. And, you know, in the cannabis industry, we're constantly developing, you know, more science. We're finding out new things, different terpenes, you know, there's so much behind it. So I think like having an open eye to things is really good. And that's why I see the East Coast kind of being innovative, because they're really open to trying new things.
Yeah, it seems like the one big thing we always get is the West Coast growers with the trees, right? Everything's a 10-foot tall tree. I don't think we can do that in New England,
I used to
right?
grow 10-pound plants
10
in
pound
800-gallon smart pots. I could lay across the pot and not touch both sides of it, like huge outdoor pots. Yes. We do 10-pound plants in them. The stalk would be like almost as big as my leg.
And you need a ladder to prune it?
Oh, yeah. Like, I'd be on the top of a 7-foot ladder with, like, some crazy pole in my arm and still being, like, trying to reach the top just to get the trellis over it.
I was going to say, do you guys put trellises over them?
Oh, yeah. You have to. We used to do, like, metal cages all the way around, and then we'd do, like, just, like, the vinyl.
The throw over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Help them out there a little bit. Man, 10 pounds. Yeah. That's a lot of fun, man. I mean, well, that's the stories we hear, and like you said, it's like when you bring it up, it is like that, because we're playing with everything we can get our hands into to see what works best with all of our climates. Because even Vermont we have a different climate than Massachusetts really does. You know?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So there's different than Rhode Island or Connecticut, right? So all of our outdoor growers, you know, it's very unique and a struggle for them here, especially between weather. Temperature, as like Bob was telling us earlier, we're gonna have snow tomorrow. Like snow. Hopefully, you guys' hoop houses are warm. You know what I mean? And then we have light deprivation and things like that they don't have to worry about out west. But then again, like you said, it's kind of funny because we are all still hiding. We're all still underground. It's not like anybody wants to throw all these huge plants outdoors or make it known that what they're doing. You know, and like again, in Mass, it's very different from Vermont, because here we're allowed like 4 plants, 6 plants, you know. In Mass, you're allowed a lot more. I hear raids in Mass where people walk in like these rooms and they're like, oh, hey, this is beautiful. And it's like 60, 70, 80 plants. And I'm like, dude, if that happened in Vermont, we'd all be in jail. Unless you're Champlain Valley Dispensary, which is another story. They can get away with 200-plus plants illegally. And, don't get me going on that. I'm still going.
No comment.
Yeah, no comment, right? Like, well, that's the thing. Like, you know, like all week long, I know I'm not going to steer away from you, Erica, but like we're going to fire up here a little bit. All week long, I've heard about these people getting busted with like 15 to 25 pounds of stuff, facing felonies, facing all these things, right? Younger people just, you know, doing their thing. 20 pounds, it seems legit, right? But then again, these businesses can keep getting away with, you know, 200-plus pounds, molds, contaminants, issues, people getting fired, you know, misdirection of cannabis within the company. You know what I mean? All these things are coming out in light of, but then we don't hear nothing happen. If this happened in Mass, these guys would be shut down.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's happening a lot, and it's crazy. Like, you know, I just keep hearing about these, you know, major cultivation facilities that are, you know, getting shut down because their product isn't testing clean enough to give to patients. And that's scary. Like, if you are a commercial cultivator and you are not concerned about the, like, quality of the product you're producing to give to, like, supposed patients, like, this is their medicine. That is the number one most important thing.
Yeah, no, it's that's what we preach over here, and like, in Vermont, it's kind of different than like a lot of stuff that's going on in the rest of the country, because we're unilateral here. So like, basically, our dispensaries self-test themselves, They self-govern themselves. So it's really a question of ethics at that point. So when you're passing those stuff on and forcing employees to process things that you know that you can't take out of products and you're giving to a patient, that's where it gets really, to
Shady.
me, yeah,
Shady.
really shady, right? But then you're the guy running like the whole state's, dispensary system. It's amazing what's going on. You don't want to know.
A lot of politics in this industry.
Yeah. Oh my God. Just wait till we get our buddy Tim and on with Brandon and get these guys going, because I mean it's a hot button topic for us, especially everywhere, because it is about the patients. You know what I mean? It's not about a specific person or the industry that we're trying to combat here. It's about giving patients the proper clean medicine. But also the big thing is choices, man. Like when you walk into a dispensary in Vermont, you get 2 or 3 choices.
Right.
Like, what are you going to do with that? You know what I mean?
It's really important. Like, I find even in Massachusetts, and like some states, because I deal with, the whole East Coast, some states, they actually treat it as, really treat it as medicine, where you walk into the dispensary, you can get it in any form. You can get patches, you can get inhalers, you can get, capsules, tinctures, whatever you need, and your doctor will prescribe you, like, the proper medicine that you need. And then you go to like Massachusetts and like these doctors will tell you, okay, go to the dispensary and get this. And they don't have that. And so, and then it's like the bud tenders don't really know what to, for people who actually have things wrong with them, like they need to be dosing properly. And when you go into a dispensary and your options are 3 different kinds of weed and like maybe one type of
concentrate or something.
Like, that is not okay. That's not enough.
Well, that's what we're talking about. I mean, it's expensive, but then again, I'm gonna side with the dispensary a little bit here, because they are put into that bracket, right? Like they don't have the option. I mean, they have to pay taxes. They have to.
It costs a lot to run a business.
Exactly. So and that's what a lot of people. That's a tough part for people to understand. So it's rough for us as consumers to go, hey, yeah, great, I can understand $480 for an ounce of weed, where I can go buy better stuff for $250 from my neighbor, and probably cleaner and local, and the list goes on. So, but you nailed it on the head, though. It's options, right? But anyways, I do have to take a break. It's 9:30. We're gonna come right back. Don't go anywhere, everybody. We're sitting here with Erica Diener from Mammoth Microbes. Thank you for coming today. This is awesome. Now we're gonna do our strain of the week by Brandon Barberio.
I'm Brandon Barberio, your cannabis expert for In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio on WGDR. This week's strain of the week is the Tahoe Blue Dream. The Tahoe Blue Dream, also known as the Blue Nightmare, is an evenly balanced 50-50 hybrid sativa, and it is crossed with the Tahoe OG and the Blue Dream. With parents like this, you know that the Tahoe Blue Dream is truly all-around winner. The flavor of this bud is like an explosion of sweet berries and pungent earth directly to your mouth. And it sure does melt on your tongue. The aroma is super sweet and dank with earthy overtones accented by sweet berries and fruit. The Tahoe Blue Dream buds are dark green, and they're shaped with orange hairs and frosty covering of crystals. The Tahoe Blue Dream has super relaxed and uplifting in nature and can leave you giggly and uncontrollable for hours on end. The high hits you at first with a happy feeling and leaves you feeling creative and sort of energized. There is no really anxious or overwhelming feeling that comes with it. As the high builds, you feel increasingly calm and laid back. There are tendencies to feel a little bit drowsy at times. But because of these effects and the insanely high percentage of THC, the Tahoe Blue Dream comes in at around 26%. And it is great for treating such conditions as loss of appetite, insomnia, nausea, and headaches. Once again, I'm Brandon Barberio, your cannabis expert for In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio on WGDR.
Kid, I really want to let kids know that illegal drugs are bad news.
Yes, David, it's true. Over 100,000 teenagers were admitted into hospitals last year because of drugs.
Yeah, but I'm talking about kids' futures. Did you know that marijuana can affect a person's physical and sexual growth?
Yes, that's quite accurate. In a laboratory test, female animals treated with the active component in marijuana experienced a 44% death rate among their offspring.
This is much more important than facts and figures. What kids should know is that marijuana has got more cancer-causing agents than tobacco. And a lot of young kids use drugs on a daily basis.
Actually, Michael, the fact is that 1 in 18 high school seniors smokes marijuana daily. And then there are the occasional users which account for...
Get this through your CPU. They don't care about statistics.
You know, you're right. I've got it. Just tell them illegal drugs are bad, so don't mess with them.
Illegal drugs are bad news. Don't mess with them.
PSA of the day right there. The illegal drugs are bad news, guys.
I'm just saying, if those statistics were true, I'd probably be dead with the amount of cannabis I've consumed in my entire life. That's pretty impressive.
Same.
Right? But now, you know, I'm going to be the hypocrite right now. Aren't we trying to, like, decriminalize all illegal drugs in some countries right now? Like, it's getting kind of crazy out there, right? Like, we're looking at... well, we got mushrooms in Denver before, like, anybody even has medical marijuana.
Right,
like,
that's crazy to me, but...
oh, my God. Right, I have a feeling before we pass... you know, medical or not medical, but recreational cannabis here in Vermont, they're going to be like LSD, mushrooms. They're going to just decriminalize in Denver, like in Colorado. Why not, right? But that's the thing, though. We're seeing it all over. Like, so last week there was a bunch of news going around about how Canada made heroin somewhat legal now, right? They decriminalized heroin.
Something about that.
So now you have a bunch of different people on two sides of the fence, which gets to be a real interesting conversation. You have the people that say this is a great idea, and B, obviously, the people that go, "This is what are you doing?" You know what I mean? I don't know how to answer this question yet. I can see kind of both sides, and I have. The biggest problem for me is I have friends that suffer. You know what I mean? I'm sick of burying our friends. So, like, almost anything is a good idea for me. But, you know, I'm a firm believer in the cannabis movement. I've seen it help and work with people insane, especially trying to get them off of Suboxone and, like, these other drugs that these guys feel like they're stuck on. And sadly, in Vermont, like, you know, and I don't know how it is across the state, and I'm going to touch it really quick because one of my best friends is going through this, is, like, the state is so messed up right now that they're threatening to lose his Suboxone stuff if he does anything with CBD even. So, like, even if he takes CBD to help calm his nerves because he doesn't want to take too much Suboxone, which he's constantly telling the doctors that, hey, you guys are, like, drugging me out on this. I need less. They just keep, it's like they're force feeding it to him. You know what I mean? And if you do cannabis, you're going to lose everything and you'll be kicked out of the program and, you know, whatever. So I just find a lot of things hypocritical in a lot of these states where, you know, hey, you know, we're going to give free, you know, what injection areas, they call them now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which, again, becomes another issue that we should discuss. But, you know, this is a cannabis show, but, like, you know, we all have somebody in our lives that are affected by this. And we all, I believe, feel that cannabis can be an effective tool with it. You know what I mean? Does it cure everything? No. But, like, can it be effective? I believe so. I've seen it. You know what I mean?
One thing that Dr. Uma always says is cannabis is an exit drug, not an entrance drug. So, like, people always say, oh, this is like, you know, people start doing hard drugs. The cannabis is always the first one. No, cannabis is the exit drug from pharmaceuticals, and for people with PTSD, veterans, you know, people with drug addictions, people with depression, you know, this is like the way to get off of the pharmaceuticals that make those problems worse in the long run. You know, cannabis doesn't have those side effects, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's not killing people.
Exactly.
So, like, I mean, this world's so messed up. I mean, we see the lady at Disney last week that gets,
my God,
you know, basically arrested for having some CBD in her purse. We see families getting torn apart because, you know, we have a 4-year-old little girl, I believe, if I remember right, that her parents were giving her cannabis treatments. So they had to go on the run. They found them, and now the courts have just issued, like, 10 to 14 days of more chemo. Like, this is getting out of hand. You know what I mean? And it's not like there isn't, you know, unfortunately, it's not like there isn't proof that there is a benefit from using it, right? But there's no federal proof because, again, it's illegal, and, like, why? They can't.
They just choose not to recognize it, you know, and it's, you know, federally. It's sad because there's so many doctors and scientists that have research and data that, like, backs up the findings that, you know, a lot of us are aware of, but the federal government doesn't want to recognize that as a whole, and, you know, it's just sad.
Well, I mean, you know, it's let's open up the testing. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we have our administration also considering decriminalizing mushrooms and things like that, but they won't even let us test for cannabis? Like, come on, like, just let us test.
Right.
I think you'd be surprised, right? Well, it's just crazy.
So, I mean, what about the day after Colorado did their whole legalization of mushrooms, right?
Right.
You saw that article that came out for Mexico. Mexico wants to decriminalize all drugs, make all drugs legal, and I don't know if you guys know this or not, but they have literally presented a bill to our government and to do the same, basically.
Basically. Yeah, no, I mean, I see that. It's crazy, and that's what we're talking about. Like, Mexico is going to push our government. I thought we were building a wall. Right. Like, to keep these guys out, you know what I mean? Like, how messed up is this country right now?
That's how backwards we are.
Right? The president's like, hey, you want us to pay for this wall, but here's how we're going to do it. We're going to decriminalize all drugs. Let's see how big your wall's going to be. I don't know. Like, it's crazy.
Well, I mean, you're seeing it in the turn of politicians, too, right? Like, we always talk about Diener, and you're like, man, this guy's been, you know, against cannabis this whole entire term, and now all of a sudden he's got a chance to invest in it, and he's pro-cannabis. Let's grow cannabis. Let's do it.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like all these guys are now into everybody's coming out of the woodwork. We even have, Vermont Howard Dean, good old Howie jumping into the game, you know what I mean? Which I just, when I think of Howie, I kind of think of like, what was his name? Back in the Reagan era, Oliver North was his name?
Oh, yeah.
The whole drug, the whole PSA, the whole, the Reagan era of Nancy
Reefer
Reagan.
Madness.
Yeah, just say no. So, I mean, unfortunately, this is the way we're brought up, right? But now you bring up a great person, Dr. Uma. We love Dr. Uma. Educate, embrace, empower. To me, it is an exit drug. I mean, I've seen it a lot. So, like, the last thing, I mean, the people who say that, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, probably never smoked weed when they were 13. You know what I mean? Because, like, for me, I call it the stigma effect. It's kind of like the butterfly effect. It's kind of like when you grow up and your dad's an alcoholic. You know it's wrong. You know you shouldn't do it. You see the adverse effects of it. But because you know that it's wrong and you can't do it and it has adverse effects, you want to try it as fast as you can do it. You're like 9 years old sipping that beer going, This is the worst thing in the world. Can I get another one?
You're like, why are they telling me not to do this?
Right?
I have to try it.
And look, friends, I'm cool. You know what I mean? It's like cigarettes, beer, alcohol. And I think, as you progress, it just, things fall in line of availability. Like, the dope guy isn't coming to the young kid going, hey, kid, you want to try this before you ever try anything? No, like, it doesn't work that way. Like you said, cigarettes, beer, cannabis. And from cannabis, like, there's never been a time where I smoked some cannabis and been like, I got to go blow a line. You know what I mean? Woohoo! But I understand it because, in music careers, we've all been in certain places and stuff like that. But for me, it was always like the party, the stigma, hey, your friends are around, you want to try this? And the next thing you know, you're hooked. Even though when you know it's bad, it's like when I look at heroin people or people using opioids right now, and it's like, how can you knowingly start an opioid right now in this day and age, knowing what's going on in this world? And
100%. It's crazy. Yeah.
Please, if somebody's out there that hasn't buried a relative due to a heroin overdose or a drug overdose, call me right now, because you're probably the one and only person.
Yeah, it's the leading cause of death in America right now.
Right,
it's
above
crazy.
Accidents, plane crashes, above everything, right? Which is above cancer, which is the craziest thing, because if it's not opioids, it's cancer, right? That's the two things we see everywhere, which... Here's a plant that you can actually say we can combat these two biggest issues. But back to everything we're talking about, not to get sidetracked. I'm going to get all worked up. But that's the thing, though. It's stigmas, man, right? So you try to break the stigma, and you see the big differences between the East Coast and the West Coast, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's unreal, right?
Even from the North to the South, it's crazy different. Crazy, crazy different.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to Brandon, and then you can vouch for it. It's like, dude, there's cannabis stores are like Starbucks out here. Like, most of these towns are everywhere, you know what I mean?
Go to Maine. You'll see a storefront, like, on every street at this point,
Which is crazy, because technically it's just like they're like in the weirdest gray area right now.
They are the biggest gray area.
It's like, are we legal? Are we not legal? We're going to hire somebody to tell us how to go legal. Oh, we fired them. Oh, now we're hiring somebody again. Hey, we think we have something. it's just like every week it's something different, and then they're we're not going to sell CBD products. You have to remove all your products off the shelves. To 3 days later being like, ha, joke, got you guys.
Bring them back.
Yeah, right.
And out here on the West Coast, you walk into a dispensary and it's like 31 flavors.
Right.
It's like 20 brands of sativa, 20 brands of hybrid, 20 brands of indica. Like, you have bud tenders that are pretty knowledgeable, you know, and the ones that are really, like, if you have patients that walk into a dispensary, I have seen bud tenders actually gracefully bow out to someone else and be like, well, I'm sorry, sir, I don't have that information, but Phil right here next to me does, because he's an expert.
Yeah, they're more professional.
Information is key, I think, for the East Coast to really flourish. You know, no one really wants to have that experience like how the West Coast was back in the day when the dispensaries first opened and bud tenders were just like, hey, man, I got this job selling weed. It's cool. You know, and people would walk in and they'd be like, oh, what do you guys got? And they would just push the special or whatever it was. There's so much more science to it now that if these people are becoming knowledgeable, it's like that guy, you know, the really amazing waiter when you go to the 5-star restaurant and you're like, oh, well, what kind of brandy do you have? And he literally lists off like 30 different types of brandy without even having anything in front of him. Oh, well, I'm really into red wine. I like Bordeaux. And he's like, oh, well, we have this amazing, you know, 1929 bottle for your steak. And those are the types of people that are really, like, you see the cream come up to the top. I see it, especially out here in Arizona. Those people are few and far between as to who really knows, like, phenomes and strains and stuff. But it definitely, there's got to be a huge push for knowledge, because if people, especially in those markets, can help them like their patients, it makes a huge difference. Everything out there is medicinal, and no one's acting like that at all.
Well, it's going to be like a restaurant at some point. Unfortunately, with knowledge comes an expense, right? You know, we talk about this a lot. Like, you know, so your average bud tender sitting there at the dispensary is not the guy that with all the knowledge, technically, right? It's usually the cash register girl, right, or guy, or whatever you want to be, right? Yep. That's where the biggest failure, I think, with this whole dispensary system is, which is what I believe helped drive the illicit market more than anything, is just the fact that these people go in there looking for a question to be answered that doesn't get answered effectively. Like you were saying before, Erica, like, when you walk into a dispensary on the East Coast, we have 3 options for you. Right. So now, so me and Brandon pick on this all the time because it's one of our favorite things. Like, you know, a woman, menopause, you go into the dispensary, 90% of the time they're not even considering anything that you would need, right? Right. Because it's like, oh, well, we have this for the cancer, we have this for this, and we have this because it didn't mold out on us or something. You know what I mean? It's the only thing that worked. But the sad part is it's not always an indica, sativa, or hybrid. So, like, you as a patient that's trying to get through your day and manage your day, right, will need probably one of the 3 throughout your day, right? So you can get up and get going, so you can go to work and not be like drilling on yourself, and one when you want to go home and drill on yourself, right, or go to bed or alleviate something. But, like, again,
that's what drives the black market still.
I think so.
You know, is like, so I was just down in Florida, like, at the policy conference, and they had a smoking ban in Florida. So, like, they opened dispensaries, they licensed 7 companies to, everything has to be vertically integrated down there. So of the 7 license holders, they're each allowed 30 storefronts. But they had, you know, they passed medical thinking, like, everyone that voted on it was thinking, okay, they're going to pass medical marijuana, we're going to be able to smoke weed finally. They passed it and they put a smoking ban, so you could only consume concentrates. And, you know, basically you go to the dispensary and it's too expensive for a lot of these people, you know, like, not everyone has the, you know, the income to afford these concentrated forms of medicine. And they weren't recognizing, like, whole plant medicine, how beneficial it is to consume, you know, flower. So then they decided to lift the smoking ban. So now, because, you know, they're just seeing how much of a black market still exists down there, because they're not allowing the dispensaries to sell flower. Because it's like, if you can't afford to go buy these like really, you know, expensive concentrates at the store, you're going to go down the street to your neighbor and buy some, which a lot of the weed is like not being, you know, it's definitely not being tested. It's probably not very good quality, you know, and, you know, that's the whole point of putting the system into place, is so that we can provide clean, safe medicine in all the forms that they need to the patients. So I'm glad that they did lift the smoking ban. I think it's going to help reduce the amount of black market weed in the state. But that's the thing. It's like when you don't have what they need at the store, that's what's going to keep the black market thriving. Yeah.
And the black market's going to supply it because it's, you know, need, demand.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's supply and demand. It's really easy. It's really easy business concept. Now, oh man, I forgot my point.
You know what, Joe? What was that article that we just both read? I think it was last week. Wasn't it Pete in 6B, right? The article about why the street cannabis dealer is so much more favored over the dispensary because of his knowledge, because of how courtesy he is. Right. He's basically open 24/7, right? Right? He's always got the best deals. You know,
and if he doesn't have it, his buddy probably does. You know what I mean? So
right.
If you're looking for something specific, but I mean, again, it's supply and demand. I think, you know, a lot of these street guys, they give you a couple of really good options. I mean, they're not all great. I mean, they're guys that do have ethics, and they're guys that definitely do not in all forms and levels of business. We see it with cartridges, which is another big thing we talk about. We have like these DNKY cartridges. We have these companies that are getting tested and they're not testing out very good. You know what I mean? It's all over social media. And it's not that we shouldn't name companies, because the companies that do make the proper product, the real product, do very good products, right? But it's the companies that are buying the packaging off of Amazon. They're doing it at home. And then again, now, who do you really trust now? Do you go back to that dispensary? Do you go back to your street dealer who doesn't necessarily know where that product came from? The beautiful thing about New England is a lot of these guys, if you want to get cannabis, it's probably grown locally.
Nowadays, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you know, it's like...
Got a lot of growers out here. West Coast doesn't even know. They're like, what's going on with our market? It's because we're growing it here now.
Yeah, right?
It's so funny because everyone on the East Coast has the nostalgia, like, oh my God, we're the first people to do this. And everybody on the West Coast is out here going, nobody on the East Coast knows what they're doing. Don't worry, we'll get there in about 5 years. It's cool. We're rolling on the set.
Well, I think, Erica, you nailed it earlier. It's because, like, you know, me and Brandon, we talk almost every day, and it's like, you know, what are you smoking out there? And it's like everything he has is like the newer age of the next level of things. And not to say we're not doing it here, but it seems like a lot of the people here in Vermont are trying to go get that original land race, that original cut, try to get as close to as original as can be. We're not seeing, I mean, we do get all these crazy, funky, you know, as everybody else does, but it seems like we're focusing a little bit more on those things instead of like all these cool new strains coming out.
Genetics is like a lot. Getting genetics on the East Coast is so much different than on the West Coast. Like in California, you can walk into any dispensary and buy all different kinds of clones, you know, rooted clones of good, really good genetics, where like a lot of people out here, like, barely know how to take clones or like when they're popping seeds, like, you know, what to be looking for or just even how to get seeds. Like I go to a lot of trade shows and I'd say the number one thing people ask me that are like new, they're like, do you know where to get any genetics? Do you know where to get good genetics? And I'm like, yeah, I do actually. But yeah, it's tough. And a lot of people just don't know. And that's kind of the sad thing. You can't really go anywhere and buy clones out here. Like you can't sell them at hydro stores, and that it's tough for people who, you know, don't want to deal with popping seeds and sexing and have the space for it and all that and pheno hunting. People don't want to do that. They just want to get a couple clones and throw them in the ground.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the easiest thing to do, right? Who wants to spend 3 years back tracing your plant? You know what I mean? But I mean, that's what needs to be done, though. And really, in retrospect, I mean, there's a lot of people doing it, and there's a lot of people doing it the other way. So, like again, like I say, in any business, there's the guys that are going to take advantage of the situation, which we see with like Miracle Grow products and all these crazy things that people do to try to yield that yield, right? Instead of dealing with, some Mammoth products, which are really great, guys. You can check them out, and they have a website and
www.mammothmicrobes.com.
plug there.
Hey, it's a good segue to the Pheno Cup, right? I mean, isn't that really why we're kind of doing that? Is because we do want to see what happens when the real growers start back-tracing the actual genetics that they're given and what comes out of it. Well, and I think that's an amazing thing.
Well, yeah, with the Pheno Cup, we're doing things very differently. For people that don't know about the Pheno Cup, it's basically the idea is that we, like a cooking show, right? We give you guys all the same basket of goods. So if you go on Iron Chef, you're literally getting the same basket of goods, and they say, cook it. And they don't tell you what to do. They don't tell you how to do what you do. You just do it, right? And that's what we're doing. So with the Pheno Cup, basically, you enter the challenge. You get your seeds, which are all the same genetics. Now, none of these genetics have been released. They're all brand new. They're all made for this event. They're all using really high-quality, organic, back-cross, stabilized, pretty much guaranteed genetics. From what we see from the people who have already got these things popping is these things are popping like crazy. People are really impressed. I mean, and it's MTG, so they've been around for 20-plus years. They've won multiple awards. They're in the High Times. They're definitely
one of the most trusted seed banks on the West Coast.
Yeah, it's really nice to see them coming out and doing this. I think, I've never actually seen a cannabis cup done this way, which is really cool because it will highlight actual growers. A lot of the times, a strain will produce something that's absolutely beautiful, but to put everybody in the same recipe, same genetics, that's really going to show who can do it the best.
Well, what's going to be unique? Yeah, what's going to be unique about it is we don't care what you grow it in. We don't care what lighting system you use. We don't care what nutrients. The only thing we ask is that you actually just tell us what you're using. So if it's I'm in hydro using this nutrient base, using LEDs or whatever however you're doing it, CFLs. We just want to know, because at the end of the day, we are really using a high quality genetic. So it's not like something that these aren't $5 seeds either. These are their vaulted seeds that they've back crossed and stabilized. So they're guaranteeing less than 2 pheno differences. So everybody thinks it's a pheno hunt. It's not. We've already done the hunting. The hunting's done. You get to reap the rewards of the hunt that MTG's been doing for I don't know how many years, right? So they're not your basic trade show seeds. And I think you can tell if you go to the page and see how fast these things are sprouting.
Oh, yeah.
How impressed some of the best growers in New England are with these seeds, right? But it was a crazy idea. After last year, we're running around. And, we did all these different cups, and we're actually coming back from the Headies last year. And me and my co-hosts were like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? It was expensive. It's this, it's that. We got to figure out a way that everybody can get involved cheaper and a cool, unique way of really showing who's a good grower, because some of these guys are great growers. They just don't have great genetics, right? Some of these guys have had the genetics for 25 years and now they're just lazy growers because they're such in a system that's hey, every day at this time I just go do this and then I can go, you know what I mean? And now these new growers, it's fun to watch them because it's like a new mom, right? You're just you're on top of it, you're pruning it, you're watching every YouTube video you can, you listen to In the Weeds. Yeah, you should be. You listen to us talk every day and you're trying to learn something, right? So and you're putting all that energy and effort into that. It's like your first kid, and the second kid's meh, and the third kid's go do what you want to do. Yeah, you know what I mean? I'll feed you. It'll work out somehow.
Literally.
But so that's where I think it comes unique for everybody involved, because we've had a lot of brand new growers be I'm intimidated. It's why? You're growing a plant. You know what I mean? The worst thing that happens is what? It doesn't grow? For us, we're giving you 5 seeds, so it's the worst thing that can happen is you're going to yield something, right? It's not
you'll have something to enter.
You have something, right? And then at least with the awards, it's kind of cool because I haven't seen anybody even do anything like this. We have presses, we have nutrient systems, we have lighting, and the chance to name the strain, which is the coolest thing ever. So
that's really, really cool.
Within reason, you know what I mean?
Crazy.
Right.
Keep it PG.
Right. The owners of MTG,
they have to approve this.
Yeah, within reason. So
donate some Mammoth P to the cause.
Right, but how awesome would that be for a grower? The biggest thing for us is when we talk to all these growers, and we get it. You know what I mean? Even though cannabis is illegal, and these things still happen. You know what I mean? People enter the cups, right? So they're paying a lot to enter. They're paying a lot to get in. It's just an expensive expensive event. So we really tried hard to do it on the cheaper end. So if you want to vend, it's really cheap. If you want to get involved, it's really cheap.
I will be there.
It's a weekend-long party. Like, we're really trying to...
Good music, good vibes, good people, good energy, and some really good weed.
Hopefully we get an awesome email today. I'm hoping we get that emails today. So
we're going to get some secret shows, some late-night DJ shows.
So, hey, you never know, man.
You know Joe's got something he's working on.
A few too many things, I think, sometimes. But anyways, guys, we're going to have to take our break here. It's coming close to the top of the hour. I can't thank you enough, Erica, for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. Anytime. The studio is always open. Tell everybody who you are again, where you're from, and how they can find you.
I am Erica Diener. I'm the Senior Sales Executive of Mammoth Microbes for the East Coast. You can find me at on Instagram at Mammoth_Erica. I'm also on Facebook, Erica Diener. You can go to our website, www.mammothmicrobes.com. Yeah, I'm easy to find.
You're everywhere.
I'm everywhere.
All right, guys. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take our quick break, top of the hour, and we'll be right back with Erica Diener, Jesselyn Dolan, and Timothy Fair. Or not. Uh-oh, what happened here? Why do we have no sound out of here? Oh. All right, we have a few technical difficulties right now. I don't know what happened there. But anyways, you guys are listening to WGDR playing for WGDH Hartford. This is Guard College Community Radio, 91.1 FM and 91.7. This is In the Weeds with Joseph Smith. We're in the studio here with Erica Diener. We have Brandon Barberio on the line with us all the way out from Arizona. And if I can figure out this stuff here really quick, we'll get some Jesselyn Dolan on. But in the meantime, we're going to have to resume our conversations. So, NECAN, hometown girl, right?
Oh,
Tell me about this award I keep picking on you about. Tell everybody about
Joe
what you got.
keeps calling me hometown girl because I won a NECAN award, New England Cannabis Community Award, for Local Kid Gone National, which, you know, I guess is because I'm from New England originally, and I've, you know, traveled and moved across the country in the cannabis community and kind of, you know, growing and making my mark here and there. I guess the people like me. They voted and I won. So that was pretty exciting. I wasn't really expecting it. I was in a really tough category with a lot of like big names. So that was really, really cool. When Danny Danko came up to me the next day and congratulated me, I was like, how did I beat you in anything? You're such a legend. I was like, this is crazy.
Well, I mean, that's probably why, because he's just been around for a while. So
Yeah.
it's like the new upcoming star on the scene. Like, you're everywhere. Like I said, I don't see anybody more than you, except for maybe like Subcool on Instagram. You know what I mean? With 300 posts a day, which is awesome. But like for real, like it's like, hey, I'm in California today. You're on the Golden Gate Bridge. Then you're
I
like,
stay busy for sure, you know, and I try to make myself useful, and you know, part of my job is building relationships, you know, with growers and with other clients that I have in this community. And, you know, for me, it's more about like, what can I, you know, give back, and the education I can bring, and helping people, you know, even aside from Mammoth P, you know, like I try to make myself useful and, you know, I truly enjoy all the people that I get to work with, which is the best part about it, you know. So it's like a family. You know, I see these people all the time, like you know, like I see you all the time. Like, how have I not been on the radio yet?
Right. It definitely doesn't look like you're not enjoying your job by any means.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it brings you everywhere, right?
Yeah, I do have fun.
So it just has opened up a world of opportunities for you. Anyways, I'm going to see if I can get this our health tips going here. So, guys, here's our health tips from Jesslyn Dolan.
And consultant, an organic cannabis and hemp farmer. I founded the Vermont Cannabis Nurses Association and am bringing you a weekly dose of whole plant to whole person medicine and healing tips. This week's health tip comes from Mary Lackalade, nurse case manager for chronic illness. As evidence starts pouring in regarding the effectiveness of cannabis for managing chronic pain, there are other self-care measures that we can use which will increase treatment effectiveness. One important measure is hydration. We have all been told that the vast majority of the human body is made up of water. All critical body fluids need replenishment. Critical fluids include not just blood, but also the fluid in the joints and along the muscles, and the fluids bathing our nervous system. If you suffer from neuropathy or chronic pain, becoming even slightly dehydrated will make you feel a whole lot worse. Keeping hydrated while using cannabis will help manage chronic pain symptoms. Usual recommendations are 8 8-ounce servings of water or other non-dehydrating fluid daily. That excludes caffeinated or alcoholic beverages. If you have kidney or heart disease, we recommend to check with your healthcare provider for adjustments. Mary reminds us water is life. Thank you, Mary Lackalade, for this week's dose of whole plant to whole person healing tips from Jessie Lynn and members of the Vermont Cannabis Nurses Association. Be sure to tune in next week on In the Weeds.
All right, we are back. Thank you, Jesslyn Dolan. We're trying to get our show going today, but I don't know what's going on. But anyways, we're here. Doesn't matter. That's all that matters, right? Hopefully we have Brandon still on the line. Brandon, you still there?
Of course.
All right. Well, we don't have Mr. Fair yet today. Hopefully things are okay going that route. But we're back, guys. We're here with Erica Diener from Mammoth Microbes again. We did get into some fun discussions about a little bit of politics, a little bit of things. So, I mean, let me ask you, how do you feel about everything right now? I mean, you're in every state talking to everybody. You have a general consensus of opinion, I bet. What do you think most of us, like, I mean, obviously we have all these states that are looking to legalize or go recreational. What are the things that you think we should consider? What are the things you think we should be doing as a whole? And should we be doing it as a whole? Should it be state by state, or should it be...
I mean, I think it's fair to do it as a whole, you know, to tell people in one state that they can have medicine and not in others. That's crazy to me. This is like human rights. You know what I mean? Like, you should have the access to the medicine you need no matter what state you live in, especially cannabis. It's a plant. Like, this is the oldest form of medicine. Like, people should have access, and you shouldn't have to be, you know, worrying about your freedom taken away just to be able to consume a plant. That's not okay.
Well, what's interesting is in some of these states, like I think it was Alabama or Nebraska, which one was on the news this morning, they were discussing they were legalizing medical cannabis, but they rolled back like in Florida, they rolled back the option of smoking.
Right.
And then also home cultivation. So you can be a patient, but you can't technically smoke it, or you can't grow it.
So that's like in a lot of states right now too, you know, even on the East Coast, you know, even in Florida, you can't grow at home. I mean, you know, even in legal states, or you can have a couple plants.
Yeah,
but,
it's not a lot.
Right, it's not much. And I mean, a couple plants is better than nothing for sure. But yeah, just the fact that you can't get medicine in states still or it's, you know, illegal to possess cannabis in states still is crazy. You know, that's got to give at some point. And I don't know if federal legalization is is going to be the final thing for that. But I do believe that that's the way we should go with it. I'm totally pro federal legalization. So
now, would it be decriminalization or legalization?
Legalization.
Legalization?
I mean, decriminalization is a start for sure. I mean, a lot of people, that's the other thing, like a lot of people that got into this industry, you know, were making a lot of money off the black market, and then everyone pushed to make it legit, and now they're like, why did we do this again? It's like,
right.
And you know, a lot of people are getting out of the game because they're not making enough money, and now there's so many licensing fees involved, and just actually running a real business is something that a lot of these people have no idea how to do and are failing. And I mean, that's also part of it. Like, and the other thing is, like, all these major corporations that are coming in and trying to take over what we've created, which is really the scary part. And that's what I don't want to see happen. It makes it really hard when states are going and, you know, only allowing vertically integrated businesses and making it really hard for the small growers to come up in this industry. Like for Maine is the greatest place to grow. Like I go there and it makes me so happy because, like, as a farmer there, you can actually go to your state legislator and House reps and write the laws with them. You know, they actually care about what the people in the community are dealing with. So that's why they have the best laws there. You know, like, you can be a caregiver and own a storefront. That's huge. You know, in other states, you'd have to have millions of dollars to even be able to have a storefront. So, I mean, it's really like, the state to state thing is crazy because it varies so much all over the place, you know, and it really makes it hard for people. And it would be nice to see something kind of just across the board, but I don't think that that's going to happen, like, to be honest.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I would like to see some type of universal system that gets put in place, or, you know, I mean, Erica makes a very good point. Take Arizona, for instance. Technically, concentrates are illegal here, so you're really only supposed to be able to smoke flower. No one in the state's really supposed to use any form of concentrated oil or edibles or cartridges or anything because the Supreme Court still hasn't made a ruling. Does that mean that we're not doing it? Yeah, right.
Right, and
But,
for, like, patients,
you know, like,
that are, like, people that are sick, like, really need that. They need strong concentrated forms of, you know, in tinctures or capsules or so. They need concentrate. You can't just,
RSO,
you
Fico.
cannot treat, like, cancer patients with flour. Like, that's not okay.
No.
Yeah, right. And any sort of, you know, anytime you smoke something, you're losing a lot of it just with the burning part of it, right?
Right.
It's not that concentrated. So, I mean, I can see why medically you would not want to have your patients smoking. It's just not the bestest way to get it in. But then again, it's how many dispensaries in Vermont, I will say, have RSO? I don't think any of them do.
None.
How many dispensaries in Vermont have FICO? I don't think any of them do. I don't know if they know how to spell it, to be honest with you. And I mean that to be nice, because it's just the people, like, you know, the difference between, I think, out here as well with out west was, like, I think out west, like, people actually would pay for the good people to come out and do the things the right way the first time, get them up and going, and not have that failure. And out here, it seems like we're taking the cheapest person we can find because nobody wants to invest money in that position. And then we're going to have some failures. We're going to have some crops that just don't go.
100%.
We've seen it. I mean,
Massachusetts, especially, you know, it's like I see them looking for head growers and they don't want to pay them what they're worth. And then they bring in people that don't know anything. And then they're like, why are our crops failing? It's like, you're investing all this money into a business to help, like, to make it succeed. And to, you know, cut corners on stuff It just doesn't make sense.
Well, my analogy to that would be like, so I'm a restaurant guy, right? It'd be like opening up a 5-star restaurant and having the dishwasher be your executive chef.
Exactly,
you know what I mean? You just don't do that. And then you pay him like a dishwasher, so when it does get bad, the guy goes, peace out, forget this. What am I doing this for? You know what I mean? You're not paying me anyway. Screw you, you know? So, I mean, you'll have those issues. But that is a problem, because I think I literally think you go manage McDonald's for more than they offer half these bud tenders in mass.
Right.
It's a quarter.
And a lot of,
right?
I know a lot of states were, proposing that, bud tenders should have some kind of pharmacist degree, which, I don't think that that's really unreasonable. You're basically telling people what to at least at a medical dispensary, in Florida, when you go into the dispensary, they will actually sit you with a nurse, and they have a nurse on hand and go over what your issues are to make sure that you're prescribed, you get the best medicine that you need while you're there. But I mean, a lot of places you go in and they'll tell you to take the wrong stuff. So.
Yep, that is absolutely true. 100%. I see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Knowledge is definitely key, and there is a huge lack of knowledge in this industry, and that really makes a huge disconnect into, what patients should be doing to properly provide what they need for themselves. And unless there's educated people like Canna nurses, it goes right out the window.
Right. They just assume, okay, I'm going into this dispensary. It's basically they're like, do you want an indica or a sativa? And they're like, I don't know what I need, And that's the problem is there's no one there to tell them what they need.
Right. Well, the thing I saw, so not only that, but it's that's one issue, but the other issue is the parent that goes into the dispensary and says, hey, my son told me I need to get the sativa. What do you guys have? And they'll look at each other and go,
we don't have any.
I don't know, or this could be, or hey, look at this, it's pretty.
Oh my God, I would walk out.
A lot of times they don't even have any. I'll be like, you have one, you have a hybrid. You don't have a straight sativa. That's basic stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, and especially when we're talking about medicine, again, it's supposed to be, options, right? go into CVS and go down the headache aisle. How many?
It's we only have Advil today.
Yeah, right. Right? Or we only, it could be we only have heroin for your headache today. You know what I mean? That's how silly. It may not sound silly in discussion, but when you actually put it out there to somebody that's suffering a headache, and be like, we only have heroin today for you.
Yeah.
So that's your option.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or see you later. You know what I mean? There's no ibuprofen here.
Yeah.
We ran out,
There's no ibuprofen here.
But the problem is so that's the thing that kills me with the dispensaries, especially the ones that grow per patient, counts. How do you run out? You're growing for a patient count. You literally have right in front of you what you can grow. If you run out, that means you failed somewhere.
And then there's growers that can't move product. And you're like, why is it that all these growers that are really good at growing are sitting on a bunch of good weed, and you walk into the dispensary and there's
crap.
Nothing I want to buy. Yeah, that's what really drives me crazy. I'm and it's a lot. It comes down to politics.
No,
that's
it does.
what it is.
So it is definitely politics, and here's where I'm going to make my break right here. We have Timothy Fair from Vermont Cannabis Solutions on the phone.
Hey, Joe.
Jumping in a little with us. I love to hear from you, Tim, every Monday morning, and I think it's a great segue because we're actually talking about dispensaries right now, right? Qualities, things like that. Last week, a big thank you again, Tim, for staying on the show with us for a long time last week, hashing out a lot of dispensary and issues. But now, Tim, how's your week?
It went really well. Went very, very well. It's always good to be here. It was a blast last week. Spent a little time down in the studio.
So I have a question, Tim, and this got me really kind of fired up this week. Well, you know how I get fired up. So I read about 5 different articles about people getting arrested and facing felony accounts with about 15 to 25 pounds max of cannabis within their bust, right? So I mean,
is that in Vermont here, Joe?
I was in New England. So there's one in Vermont. If I remember reading correctly, I believe it was Vermont last week. You may know the issue. I believe one was in New Hampshire, Mass, and there's a couple throughout New England. So it's just it kicks back to the dispensary issue again. Is there any sort of update, anything that anybody should know about this, or is this just another sweep under the rug, 200 and plus plants that we're not going to take account for?
It's certainly starting to look that way. And it's incredibly frustrating. I think most of the people, for those who may be listening who aren't aware, it recently came out through an investigative journalism piece through Heady, Vermont, that one of our dispensaries, Champlain Valley Dispensary, and specifically the head of that organization, Shane Lynn, who holds 2 of the 5 licenses here in Vermont, was found to have been illegally, in our opinion, growing 220 plants on another Vermont owned business's property under the guise of it being hemp, when in actuality the plants were a 21% critical mass strain. And yeah, swept under the rug would be a great way to put it, being that this happened almost 8 months ago in October of 2018, and we're only finding out about this now in mid-May of 2019. While at the same time, I think the one case you were talking about here in Vermont, we do represent an individual who was charged with felonies for growing 9 mature plants, 21 or so starts, and even more egregious, we have a case where we're defending a felony charge in Bennington County with an individual who is being accused of growing 5 cannabis plants. This is a medical patient who is also a licensed hemp grower, had over 10 pounds of his perfectly legal, perfectly registered hemp seized as well. So, the frustration is, I think understandable when you're looking at average Vermont citizens who are trying to stay within the law. We're not talking about, large-scale grow operations. We're talking about for personal use. We're talking about for medical patients who can't get their medicine at the current dispensary system, being charged with felonies, while it's the very dispensaries who are causing this problem are growing, obviously large-scale commercial grows unimpeded, and this was notified to the Department of Public Safety, who has been amongst the, most ardent of prohibitionists who promptly chose not to investigate and just let it go away. So, yeah, there's some frustrations right now. And again, I think all of this can be directly related to the fact that we don't have a tax and regulated system. It is still just kind of open. Nobody's sure what they can or can't do. Nobody's sure what is legal. If the plant is cut and hanging, is that considered being cultivated? I would say no, but law enforcement has a different opinion. Mm-hmm. So until we get this bill passed, until we have this Cannabis Control Board established, I think we're going to see more and more of this go on. And, as an attorney, as an advocate, as somebody who cares passionately about this industry here in Vermont, it is very frustrating to us here at Vermont Cannabis Solutions.
Oh, man, it's amazingly frustrating. I mean, Eric, you see it, every different state has their own different thing, and you dealing with growers, seriously, literally directly, must have to hear about...
I've dealt with Champlain Valley, actually. It's something that... You really have to be careful what you're doing. And when you're being a role model in the community, you should be really, really watching what you're doing. To me, it's shocking that they would do that and try and pull a fast one, oh, these are hemp plants. No, they're not. Yeah. And then when you see the actual patients that are, just living their free rights of growing their plants and they're getting messed with, that's just not fair. It's upsetting.
Especially when it's, what was it, 5 pounds, Tim?
Which one are you talking about?
Well, a lot of these are kind of minuscule amounts, anyways, in comparison, right?
They are. The one in Bennington was 5 plants.
Oh, plants. That's
right. That's nothing.
What you have to keep in mind is that people in Vermont, under the 2018 legalization law, are allowed to possess an unlimited quantity of cannabis grown from their home grow in their own homes. So law enforcement loves to shoot out these huge. Oh, he had 10 pounds. He had 13 pounds. He had 9 pounds. It's irrelevant because you're allowed to have an unlimited quantity.
Right.
But it's the same fear tactics that were used. Oh, that sounds like a big number. That must be very serious. Well, no, it's not.
Right. Is that whole plant weight, or is that actual flower weight? Are you weighing the wet?
Convenient for law enforcement.
Is that the wet plant?
That's the frustrating part of it. Absolutely. And but we are fighting these. And on the plus side, we are seeing some good results. We're not we are obviously not just rolling over and taking whatever the state says. We're fighting these things. We're fighting the search warrants. We recently had a great Supreme Court case here in Vermont which said that the smell of burning cannabis is no longer sufficient probable cause to search and seize a vehicle. They did say it could be used as a potential piece of evidence towards, DUI cannabis, but that the smell alone was not sufficient to seize a vehicle. So now we're challenging a lot of these cases where law enforcement are responding to another issue and smell cannabis at a house and then immediately seize the property for a search warrant. We're fighting that tooth and nail, and we're getting some really good kind of responses from our challenges. State's attorneys are starting to realize that this really isn't the way we're going to be doing things moving forward. So I think it's important to fight these things, and I think it's important for people to stand up for their rights and not just simply roll over. The more we fight, the more we win, the less we're going to see these type of things happen.
It's amazing the way some of these states handle this business. Like, what was it, a week or so ago, we just got word back from the big transport there of hemp that got busted in, what was it, Idaho or Ohio?
Idaho. Big guy. Yep.
Yeah, right. So basically they tested the plants. They came back as industrial hemp, like the guy said, right? They're completely within all legal confines, just not legal in Ohio. So now they're auctioning off the truck. They're going to auction off the product. It's illegal. How can they auction off
hundreds of thousands of dollars now are going? Yeah, when it's CBD, it's
right.
Not even. It's industrial hemp.
They're going to make string with it.
That's the crazy thing.
Paper, concrete. It's like it's not even something that's even going to come close to.
It's so important for people to know what their rights are, and I think that is like the biggest thing I can stress is like if you are growing anything in this cannabis space, like know your rights and like. If you're trying to get into the business, get a lawyer first.
Right.
Before you do anything.
I hate to make self-serving comments, but I agree 100%.
You want to be careful, and this is like, especially when it's new, there's so many gray areas and loopholes where you can get in trouble. But if you know your rights and you kind of stay to the guidelines of things, you can really succeed. And it's really just knowing what you can and cannot do.
I mean, there's
if I can add on to that a little bit, Erica, you're absolutely right, 100%. And one of the things we do, though, it's not just knowing about the laws in the state that you are, cultivating in terms of hemp. It's knowing the laws in the states in each and every state your hemp might be traveling through if you're shipping it. So one of the things we have done here and are doing now for our clients who are doing out-of-state shipping is we'll set up a network of cannabis law attorneys, a licensed cannabis law attorney in every single state that shipment is going through, who is on a 24-hour call. That way, if a driver is pulled over in Delaware or pulled over in Virginia, rather than scrambling at the time of the stop and trying to figure out what's going on, we'll have them with a number, a name, somebody who is aware of the shipment, aware of the weight, aware of the time of transport, who can then serve as local counsel to step in immediately, hopefully be able to file some emergency motions to keep that hemp from getting seized, or at least, getting in front of a judicial officer a lot quicker, as opposed to a driver who's never been in that state and is arrested and finds themselves in a jail cell and doesn't know what to do. And I think that type of kind of forethought and pre-planning really can provide, a lot of help in this matter as people get up to speed on just what is and isn't legal.
Absolutely.
Well, it's so confusing. Like, I'll use Vermont as a perfect example right now, and just because this issue happened a couple of weeks ago. So here in Vermont, right, we don't have any testing facilities, correct? Right? So there's no ways to test your means.
We
no
do. They're getting up and running. There are a handful. The state supposedly can do some testing now, and I know places like Northeast processing. So we're getting there, but it's still in the infancy.
Well, for like THC testing, right? So you want to be proper. So what do you do? Most people in Vermont have to send their product out of state, right?
That is true.
So Tim, what you're doing is awesome because you're trying to protect all your clients. But now here's where it comes to the weird issues. Like now you got to push state. I just saw a guy from Maine get busted for bringing product down to MCR Labs and crossing state lines. So he just had like 80 pounds of product that just got confiscated because he tried to do the right thing and go and get a product tested. You know what I mean? So here's where here's where we all got to figure this out. You know what I mean? Because now we have Ohio, this truck sitting there getting auctioned off for technically being within guidelines from the state he left in the state he's going in. Just not necessarily the state in between that he traveled in, right? So that's, like Tim said, that we have that in everything that you do, right?
Well, and people assume hemp is federally legal.
Yeah, because of the Farm Bill, right?
Right, because of the Farm Bill, but that doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want.
This is the interesting part of this. For the last 10 years, what we've seen is the federal government outlawing cannabis and states legalizing it, saying, no, we have the right to legalize this. With hemp, that whole dynamic has gotten turned on its head now. The federal government is saying if it contains less than 0.3% THC, it's industrial hemp at the federal level. But what we're seeing is states like Louisiana, Texas, and Ohio saying, no, any amount of THC, whether it's 0.1 or 0.2, even if it's under that 0.3 threshold, it's still illegal under state law as containing any amount of THC. So it's just like, you gotta be kidding me. You know, I mean, how much more difficult can we make this industry for people? It's very frustrating.
You know who are
just making up the laws as they go along.
They've got crazy laws down in Washington, D.C. It's federally illegal still, but it's a legalized district. So they actually have the craziest system I've ever seen. They will allow these storefronts, anyone who owns a storefront, you can basically sell cannabis out of it, but you're not selling the weed. You're selling items, and the weed is the free gift.
Yep.
So you walk into a store and you buy a $60 T-shirt, and they give you like 2 grams of weed,
right, and that's okay.
That's their recreational cannabis, and that's freaking crazy.
We only got about a minute and a half here left, guys. But we actually have somebody coming on the show in a couple weeks here from Washington, D.C. to talk about how crazy weird it is down there. I met him a little while back, and he was telling me stories, and I was like, yeah, kind of same things. Like, yeah, we got stories. You can, but like, it's not legal, but it's legal, and they let you do it, but they don't, but then they do it, and it's like... Yeah. You know, it's one of those weird things, right? And the saddest thing is it's happening right around the Capitol, right? It's all the guys are fighting us for all this, and they're probably going into their little corner store and being like, I need my CBD, right?
Yeah, in one area.
Well, all right, guys, we're going to have to wrap up the show right now. Erica, tell everybody who you are one more time and where they can find you. I'm Erica Diener from Mammoth Microbes. You can find me on Instagram at mammoth_Erica. Our website is www.mammothmicrobes.com. You can find me on Facebook, Erica Diener, or at a cannabis show. All right, guys, I want to thank everybody for being a part of the show today, and we're going to leave it with Rick Renton and The Love. See you guys next week.
See you, Joe.
See you guys later. Thank you, guys.
Sometimes you catch that funky breeze in the In the Weeds with your hosts Joe Smith and John Q. Public on WGDR 91.1 FM and WGDH